The Kingdom of Sardinia was a state in Europe from the early 14th until the mid-19th century. It was the predecessor state of today's Italy, a small state with weak institutions when it was acquired by the Duke of Savoy in 1720. The Savoyards united their insular and continental domains and built Sardinia, often called Piedmont Sardinia in this period, into one of the great powers by the time of the Crimean War. Its final capital was Turin, the center of Savoyard power since the Middle Ages. The kingdom initially consisted of the islands of Corsica and Sardinia, sovereignty over both of which was claimed by the papacy, which granted them as a fief, the Regnum Sardiniae Corsica, to King James II of Aragon in 1297. Beginning in 1324, James and his successors conquered the island of Sardinia and established de facto their de jure authority. In 1420 the last competing claim to the island was bought out. After the union of the crowns of Aragon and Castile, Sardinia became a part of the burgeoning Spanish Empire. In 1720 it was ceded by the Habsburg and Bourbon claimants to the Spanish throne to Duke Victor Amadeus II of Savoy. The Kingdom of Sardinia came to be progressively identified with the entire domain ruled by the House of Savoy, which included, besides Savoy and Aosta, dynastic possessions since the 11th century, the Principality of Piedmont, and the County of Nice, while the traditional capital of the island of Sardinia and seat of its viceroys was Cagliari. The Piedmontese city of Turin was the de facto capital of the House of Savoy. When the mainland domains of the House of Savoy were occupied and eventually annexed by Napoleonic France, the King of Sardinia made his permanent residence on the island for the first time in its history. The Congress of Vienna, which restructured Europe after Napoleon's defeat, returned to Savoy its mainland possessions and augmented them with Liguria, taken from the Republic of Genoa. In 1847–48, in a perfect fusion, the various Savoyard states were unified under one legal system, with the capital in Turin, and granted a constitution, the Statuto Albertino. There followed the annexation of Lombardy, the central Italian states and the two Sicilies, Venetia, and the Papal States. On 17 March 1861, to more accurately reflect its new geographic extent, the Kingdom of Sardinia changed its name to the Kingdom of Italy, and its capital was eventually moved first to Florence and then to Rome. Early history. In 238 BC Sardinia became, with Corsica, a province of the Roman Empire. The Romans ruled the island until the middle of the 5th century, when it was occupied by the Vandals, who had also settled in North Africa. In 534 AD it was reconquered by the Romans, but now from the Eastern Roman Empire, Byzantium. It remained a Byzantine province until the Arab conquest of Sicily in the 9th century. After that, communications with Constantinople became very difficult, and powerful families of the island assumed control of the land, facing Arab attempts to sack and conquer, while having almost no outside help. Sardinia utilized the principle of translator impera and continued to organize itself along the ancient Roman and Byzantine model. The island was not the personal property of the ruler and of his family, as was then the dominant practice in Western Europe, but rather a separate entity and during the Byzantine Empire, a monarchical republic, as it had been since Roman times. Starting from 705 to 706, Saracens from North Africa harassed the population of the coastal cities. Information about the Sardinian political situation in the following centuries is scarce. Due to Saracen attacks, in the 9th century Tharos was abandoned in favor of Oristano. After more than 1800 years of occupation, Caralis, Porto Torres and numerous other coastal centers suffered the same fate. There is a record of another massive Saracen sea attack in 1015–16 from the Balearics, led by Mujahid al-Amiri. The Saracen attempt to invade the island was stopped by the Judicatus with the support of the fleets of the maritime republics of Pisa and Genoa, free cities of the Holy Roman Empire. Pope Benedict VIII also requested aid from the maritime republics of Pisa and Genoa in the struggle against the Arabs. After the Great Schism, Rome made many efforts to restore Latinity to the Sardinian church, politics, and society, and to finally reunify the island under one Catholic ruler, as it had been for all of southern Italy, when the Byzantines had been driven away by Catholic Normans. Even the title of Judices was a Byzantine reminder of the Greek church and state, in times of harsh relations between Eastern and Western churches. Recapture of Constantinople, 1261. Before the Kingdom of Sardinia and Corsica, the Archons, or, in Latin, Judices, who reigned in the island from the 9th or 10th century until the beginning of the 11th century, can be considered as real kings of all Sardinia, even though nominal vassals of the Byzantine emperors. Of these sovereigns only two names are known: Turco Toriu and Seleuciu, who probably ruled in the 10th century. The Archons still wrote in Greek or Latin, but one of the first documents of the Judex of Cagliari, their direct successor, was written in Romance Sardinian language, but with the Greek alphabet. The realm was divided into 4 small kingdoms, the Judicature, perfectly organized as was the previous realm, but was now under the influence of the Pope and the Holy Roman Empire. That was the cause of conflicts leading to a long war between the Judices, who regarded themselves as kings fighting against rebellious nobles. The Judicature came to an end in 1410, when the new Kingdom of Sardinia and Corsica defeated the Arborea Judicatus in a battle in San Luiri, and its sovereign rights were sold by the last Judex. Later, the title of King of Sardinia was granted by the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire to Barazone II of Arborea and Enzio of Sardinia. The first could not reunify the island under his rule, despite years of war against the other Sardinian Judices, and he finally concluded a peace treaty with them in 1172. The second did not have the opportunity. Invested with the title from his father, Emperor Frederick II in 1239, he was soon recalled by his parent and appointed imperial vicar for Italy. He died in 1272 without direct recognized heirs after a detention of 23 years in a prison in Bologna. The Kingdom of Sardinia and Corsica was a state whose king was the King of Aragon, who started to conquer it in 1324, gained full control in 1410, indirectly ruled it until 1460. In that year it was incorporated into a sort of confederation of states, each with its own institutions, called the Crown of Aragon, and united only in the person of the king. The Crown of Aragon was made by a council of representatives of the various states and grew in importance for the main purpose of separating the legacy of Ferdinand II of Aragon from that of Isabella I of Castile when they married in 1469. The idea of the kingdom was created in 1297 by Pope Boniface VIII, as a hypothetical entity created for James II of Aragon under a secret clause in the Treaty of Anagni. This was an inducement to join in the effort to restore Sicily, then under the rule of James's brother Frederick III of Sicily, to the Angevin dynasty over the oppositions of the Sicilians. The 2 islands proposed for this new kingdom were occupied by other states and fiefs at the time. In Sardinia, 3 of the 4 states that had succeeded Byzantine imperial rule in the 9th century had passed through marriage and partition under the direct or indirect control of Pisa and Genoa in the 40 years preceding the Anagni Treaty. Genoa had also ruled Corsica since conquering the island nearly 2 centuries before. There were other reasons beside this papal decision. It was the final successful result of the long fight against the Ghibelline city of Pisa and the Holy Roman Empire itself. Furthermore, Sardinia was then under the control of the very Catholic kings of Aragon, and the last result of rapprochement of the island to Rome. The Sardinian Church had never been under the control of the Ecumenical Patriarchate of Constantinople. It was an autonomous province loyal to Rome, and belonging to the Latin Church, but during the Byzantine period became influenced by Byzantine liturgy and culture. Foundation of the Kingdom of Sardinia. In 1297, Pope Boniface VIII, intervening between the houses of Anjou and Aragon, established on paper a Regnum Sardiniae Corsica that would be a fief of the papacy. Then, ignoring the indigenous states which already existed, the Pope offered his newly invented fief to James II of Aragon, promising him papal support should he wish to conquer Piedmont Sardinia in exchange for Sicily. In 1323 James II formed an alliance with Huto of Arborea and, following a military campaign which lasted a year or so, occupied the Pisan territories of Cagliari and Gallura along with the city of Sicily, claiming the territory as the Kingdom of Sardinia and Corsica. In 1353 Aragon made war on Arborea, then fought with its leader Mariana Saivi of Arborea, of the Capi de Bar family, but did not reduce the last of the Judicature until 1420. The Kingdom of Sardinia and Corsica retained its separate character as part of the Crown of Aragon and was not merely incorporated into the Kingdom of Aragon. At the time of his struggles with Arborea, Peter IV of Aragon granted an autonomous legislature to the kingdom and its legal traditions. The kingdom was governed in the king's name by a viceroy. In 1420, Alfonso V of Aragon, king of Sicily and heir to Aragon, bought the remaining territories for 100,000 gold florins of the Judicature of Arborea in the 1420 from the last Judice William III of Narbonne. The Kingdom of Sardinia extended throughout the island, except for the city of Castelsada that was stolen from the Doria in 1448, and renamed Castillo Aragonese. Corsica, which had never been conquered, was dropped from the formal title and Sardinia passed with the Crown of Aragon to a united Spain. The defeat of the local kingdoms, communes and signory, the firm Aragonese rule, the introduction of a sterile feudalism, as well as the discovery of the Americas, provoked an unstoppable decline of the Kingdom of Sardinia. A short period of uprisings occurred under the local noble Leonardo de Aragon, Marquis of Oristano, who defended his territories against the viceroy Niccolo Carozzi and managed to defeat the viceroy's army in the 1470s, but was later crushed at the Battle of Macama in 1478, ending any further revolts in the island. The unceasing attacks from North African pirates and a series of plagues further worsened the situation. Aragonese conquest of Sardinia. Although the Kingdom of Sardinia and Corsica could be said to have started as a questionable and extraordinary de jure state in 1297, its de facto existence began in 1324 when, called by their allies of the Judicature di Arborea in the course of war with the Republic of Pisa, James II seized the Pisan territories in the former states of Cagliari and Gallura and asserted his papally approved title. In 1347 CE, Aragon made war on landlords of the Doria House and the Malaspina House, who were citizens of the Republic of Genoa, which controlled most of the lands of the former Logudoro state in northwestern Sardinia, including the city of Alghero and the semi-autonomous Republic of Sicily, and added them to its direct domains. The Judicature of Arborea, the only Sardinian state that remained independent of foreign domination, proved far more difficult to subdue. Threatened by the Aragonese claims of suzerainty and consolidation of the rest of the island, Arborea continued the conquest of the remaining Sardinian territories beginning in 1353. In 1368 an Arborea offensive succeeded in nearly driving the Aragonese from the island, reducing the Kingdom of Sardinia and Corsica to just the port cities of Cagliari and Alghero and incorporating everything else into their own kingdom. A peace treaty returned the Aragonese their previous possessions in 1388. But tensions continued, and 1382 CE the Arborean army led by Brancalwong Doria again swept the most of the island into Arborean rule. This situation lasted until 1409, when the army of the Judicator of Arborea suffered a heavy defeat by the Aragonese army in the Battle of San Louis. After the sale of the remaining territories for 100,000 gold florins to the Judicator of Arborea in 1420, the Kingdom of Sardinia extended throughout the island, except for the city of Castelsada, which had been stolen from the Doria in 1448. The subduing of Sardinia having taken a century, Corsica, which had never been wrestled from the Genoese, was dropped from the formal title of the kingdom. Early history of Piedmont. Piedmont was inhabited in early historic times by Celto-Ligurian tribes such as the Taurini and the Salazar. They later submitted to the Romans, who founded several colonies there, including Augusta Taurinorum and Eforidia. At the time, Piedmont, as part of the Kingdom of Italy within the Holy Roman Empire, was subdivided into several marks and counties. In 1046, Odo of Savoy added Piedmont to their main segment of Savoy, with the capital at Chambéry. Other areas remained independent, such as the powerful communes of Asti and Alessandria and the marquisates of Saluzzo and Montferrat. The county of Savoy was elevated to a duchy in 1416, and Duke Emmanuel Filiberto moved the seat to Turin in 1563. Exchange of Sardinia for Sicily. The Spanish domination of Sardinia ended at the beginning of the 18th century, as a result of the War of the Spanish Succession. By the Treaty of Utrecht of 1713, Spain's European empire was divided. The Savoy received Sicily and parts of the Duchy of Milan, while Charles VI received the Spanish Netherlands, the Kingdom of Naples, Sardinia, and the bulk of the Duchy of Milan. During the War of the Quadruple Alliance, Victor Amadeus II, Duke of Savoy and Sovereign of Piedmont, had to agree to yield Sicily to the Austrian Habsburgs and receive Sardinia in exchange. The exchange was formally ratified in the Treaty of The Hague of 17 February 1720. Because the Kingdom of Sardinia had existed since the 14th century, the exchange allowed Victor Amadeus to retain the title of king in spite of the loss of Sicily. Victor Amadeus initially resisted the exchange, and until 1723 continued to style himself King of Sicily rather than King of Sardinia. The state took the official title of Kingdom of Sardinia, Cyprus and Jerusalem, as the House of Savoy still claimed the thrones of Cyprus and Jerusalem, although both had long been under Ottoman rule. In 1767 to 1769, Charles Emmanuel III annexed the Maddalena archipelago in the Strait of Bonifacio from the Republic of Genoa and claimed it as part of Corsica. Since then the archipelago has been a part of the Sardinian region. Napoleonic Wars and the Congress of Vienna. In 1792, the Kingdom of Sardinia and the other states of the Savoy Crown joined the First Coalition against the French First Republic, but was beaten in 1796 by Napoleon and forced to conclude the disadvantageous Treaty of Paris, giving the French army free passage through Piedmont. On 6 December 1798, Joubert occupied Turin and forced Charles Emmanuel IV to abdicate and leave for the island of Sardinia. The Provisionary Government voted to unite Piedmont with France. In 1799, the Austro-Russians briefly occupied the city, but with the Battle of Marengo, the French regained control. The island of Sardinia stayed out of the reach of the French for the rest of the war. In 1814, the Crown of Savoy enlarged its territories with the addition of the former Republic of Genoa, now a duchy, and it served as a buffer state against France. This was confirmed by the Congress of Vienna, which added the region of Savoy to its borders. In the reaction after Napoleon, the country was ruled by conservative monarchs. Victor Emmanuel I, Charles Felix and Charles Albert, who fought at the head of a contingent of his own troops at the Battle of Trocadero, which set the reactionary Ferdinand VII on the Spanish throne. Victor Emmanuel I disbanded the entire Code Napoleon and returned the lands and power to the nobility and the church. This reactionary policy went as far as discouraging the use of roads built by the French. These changes typified Piedmont. The Kingdom of Sardinia industrialized from 1830 onward. A constitution, the Statute Albertino, was enacted in the year of revolutions, 1848, under liberal pressure. The kingdom that until that moment was strictly confined to the island, annexed all the other states of the Savoy House. But its institutions were deeply transformed. It became a constitutional and very centralized monarchy on the French model. Under the same pressure, Charles Albert declared war on Austria. After initial success, the war took a turn for the worse and Charles Albert was defeated by Marshal Radetzky at the Battle of Custoza.